BeemCar is the latest of my challenges. My whole career has been about challenges, mainly technical challenges, of which this slide shows you some of the projects I've worked on in the past. I spent 23 years in the Air Force, moving around every few years to something new job, new challenge. These are some of the challenges I saw after I left the Air Force in composites: helmets for Eurofighter, submarine rudders for the astute submarine, hovercraft, all with their own individual different challenges. A few years ago, I was working as part of Pickering 2020 town team, and we had a missing 8-mile gap between Malton and Pickering for the railway, and we wanted to bring tourists in. So we looked around, what could we use to link up 4 tourist attractions? So we thought about a monorail, and that led from monorail to PRT to me thinking, well, I can't find anything out here that is really that good. I'll do something myself. So I set myself the challenge and started working on BeemCar, and I got hooked by it. I've been to conferences and given conferences on it. So just going back to my approach to things, my design philosophy for BeemCar, what I like to do is apply KISS. Keep it simple, stupid, if you've never come across that before. Something that engineers use. So actually applying that to the design, you've got to look at things like keeping down the number of parts. If you've got less parts, you've got less to worry about, especially if you take out the moving parts. If you can remove the weight off the thing, as somebody said already this morning, 50% reduction in weight gives you 40% improvement in energy efficiency, so you minimise the weight, which I'll come on to a bit later. Be innovative. Think outside the box. Use proven technology. TRL, if everybody's familiar with TRL levels 8, 9. Mature technology that's been out before. Now with BeemCar, I've used technology that even goes back to the 1940s from my aerospace background, things like that. Been around a long time, seen a lot of things, still look at new things, so I have a broad experience of different types of technology. Whatever you design, you must be able to make it. So I'm very conscious of working with designers and designing for manufacture. And COTS, if you've not come across that before, commercial off-the-shelf parts. And the last bit on there is looking at the integrated logistics support. You need to be able to support the items that you're buying in, that you're making, that you're designing, so that you know how much it's going to cost you in service. So you're actually looking at your through-life costs from start right the way through to the finish, which must include disposal as well, which is obviously a bit of an issue for EVs with all these batteries they tend to use. So how is BeemCar different? Well, you could, very simplistically, you could see it's like being suspended from a zip wire, or like a cable car or a chairlift. If you replace the chair on a chairlift with a pod and make that pod attractive so that car users will use that pod and feel at home in there without having to worry about using the mobile phone while they're driving. They can have a cup of coffee, use a laptop, things like that. And you replace the wires with a beam, which means you can then go around bends. You can set up a network. So my pod is designed to give you an excellent passenger experience, to be able to attract car drivers out of cars. It's got 4 forward-facing seats, 2 at the front, 2 sets set back behind that, slightly raised and slightly further apart, so the people get a good view. Helicopter-type front cockpits, so you get a good view of the ground below. There's no guideway to get in the way of the view. You can see what's happening below. At the back, there's a 5th fold-down seat, and the door is at the back, with a large platform that sits between the rear seats, which is 1700 by 750 millimetres in dimensions, which is big enough for a wheelchair, a push bike, push chairs, or even a model on Travesco, the largest mobility scooter available in the UK. So it's designed to accommodate all users. So how is BeemCar different? Well, it's very much lighter and it uses much less energy than any of the other systems. And if you look at the table there, you'll see there's, just picking out some of those features, one of the biggest things about PRT systems is visual intrusion. And if you look, my beam, because it's a suspended system, the beam is only 0.45 of a metre wide, whereas all the supported systems like Ultra, Vectus and To Get There, which are the certificated systems, all have beams well over, have to be wider than the width of the vehicle to be able to be supported. So my beam being small gives you less visual intrusion. It's also a couple of metres higher, so again it looks smaller. You'll see from the table it uses less energy because of carrying less stuff on it. It's shorter in length because of the way it's been designed, with seats all facing forwards instead of back to front. Also, with a suspended system, you can actually tackle inclines of 30 degrees. So when my BeemCar goes offline, instead of being horizontal with the main track, you can actually drop down to street level, pick up people, and take them back up again. And the pod will always remain horizontal rather than have the roller coaster effect you get with some of the other systems. If you look at the drawing on the top left, that's the shape of the beam. Now, that's been designed for stiffness. It's a composite beam. And if you remember, reinforced steel joists, I-shaped beams are the best thing for stiffness in engineering. So I've designed it around that. I've tapered off the corners so it looks a bit better, a bit less visually intrusive. I've also added solar panels to the top. So you've got something like 400 square metres of solar panels per kilometre, which should give you somewhere in the order of 500 kilowatts of energy. It's got lower through-life costs because it's non-corrosive. It's cheaper to install because it's much lighter. And the Dragons have some samples here so they can feel the difference between steel and carbon composites. And in fact, the carbon there has only got half a millimetre of carbon. And you can probably bend the steel, but I'd challenge anybody in the audience to actually break the carbon fibre plate there, which is about a quarter of the weight of the steel. The thing about composites is I can mould that to the shape that I want it to be. I can mould it to put the wheels in where I want them. The linear induction motors are on the beam on the top, so they're not being carried around by the pod. I don't have batteries on the pod. I don't have wheels on the pod. I don't braked wheels. I only have small wheels because I don't need braking because I'm using linear induction motors propulsion. My preferred business model, because this is only a project, there isn't a company BeemCar yet. That's what I'm working towards. My preferred option would be for a not-for-profit company, so that the local community in the North East can benefit from that. I mean, keep control of the actual system and keep the cost down as well. With all the design and the manufacture subcontracted out to companies, a lot of whom I've already identified through work I've done in a previous job working with in a collaborative nature with various companies in the North East. The way that the investors would be financed would be through royalty payments of 15%. Well, in fact, 10% towards the investment. I'm looking for £20 million, of which 0.5% per million of any royalty payments on sales for the 20 years of the design rights or longer. 5% would be contingency and for the founders and for the community fund, with an additional 5% if we do overseas production. I haven't got a management structure, but what I'd like is a charismatic, diplomatic, well-connected chairman, a young, dynamic, driven CEO, and a board with talent and experience. And I myself, I'll be the technical director, so I can earn a salary and take some money and have a nice retirement.
Sounds like a good idea.
Let somebody else do the work, you know, for a change. Risk is obviously a key issue when it comes to investment, so that's why I've used my I used to be a business development manager. I've negotiated terms and conditions, contract, so I know all about risk and investment and price things. So I've used proven technology in this. I've got a list of suppliers who, when they get weeded out, I should hopefully end up with a set of competent and committed suppliers. Obviously, good cost control is essential by having stage payments, stage decision processes, design reviews, transparency, clear contracts. I'm nearly out of time. Oh, and good project management. And obviously the market is huge for this.
The question I was going to ask, you've already answered. What skill gaps do you have in your business? And you said chairman, chief executive, executive leadership team, and project management. If I was to ring fence $500,000 for key hires for your business today to mitigate any risk over the next 2 or 3 years, how would you spend that money on your organisation?
Well, I'd set up a good project management system in the first place. I've used things like 4 projects in the past, which are used for civil projects. Tesco's and people like that use it. It's a good tool that provides an overview of things and transparency from people from the top right the way down. You can see everything that's going on. Obviously, you need a finance man in there to make sure you're spending the money wisely and to sit and be the man at the meeting that says, well, hang on a minute, boss. I have good project managers in there. Project managers to me are key to any project design. Having design reviews at key stages of the development, so you get to a stage where you make a decision before you invest any more money, and you invest it in stages. You wouldn't spend £500,000 all at once. You spend it on, I mean, in this case, the first thing to do is sit down and you know, I've got various bits to, looking at the stages, detailed design, working towards a test track where you have a kilometre test track with pods where you can get certification.
How confident are you about the kind of safety aspects of it and the kind of the strength of the materials and the potential for failure of some of these lighter materials? Are you, presumably they've never been put together in this kind of form before?
Well, you've seen some of the projects I worked on before. I mean, submarine rudders are subject to very high loads when they're stressed. In fact, the one rudder, if you remember right, scraped the bottom in the on the Astute submarine recently. The helmets that were produced, which I helped develop, they have been rocket sled tested at 600 knots. They weigh less than 2 kilos, and they're stiff enough to have images on the visor. I know about composites, I know about different processes. I'm very confident. A picture on there which I wasn't able to point out was of a bridge that's been put in December 2010 near Madrid. 43 metres long, 5 metres wide by 1.5 metres wide. It took 2 hours to put it in position, and it weighs 25 tonnes, half the weight of a steel bridge. Composites are out there in the real world, and long structures.
Thank you. And it looks very elegant, and I assume it works, and I assume it's safe. And what evidence can you provide us that anyone actually wants it? Because you've got a different concept or a different way of doing things than have traditionally been used.
Well, I've been to a couple of conferences last year, and people, well-known people in the industry have actually said to me, Peter, you've got to take that forward. The industry needs that as a second, if you like, generation of PRT systems that follow on from Ultra, get there, and Vectus. Vectus are just got a contract for 4.5 kilometres of track in Suncheon in Korea, and they're looking to expand that each year. To get there, I've got their Mazda system, and they're looking to go into other markets. Ultra, I think, have got India sewn up with Fairchild. Even the transport catapult that's been formed in the UK is now actually actively talking about PRT. There's other towns.
Do you have any idea where your first contract could be, or where you really want to demonstrate it?
Where I can set up a 1 kilometre track that's in public view, where people can come and see it, where it's easily accessible for customers to come to on a train or on public transport. Flying to London, get the train up to Newcastle, say, for example. Yeah. I'll put it across the Tyne, with the metro.
I thought you were going to say that.
Peter, you've said that the technologies you've used are well known, and you put them together in a new way.
Yes.
Have you checked out that none of these non-technologies that you've used, the components you've used, are actually proprietary, so nobody can actually come and stop you using them because of IP rights?
Well, as far as I'm aware, I am. There's nothing that I know of that is proprietary. I know what I put out there. I can't put IPR on. My IPR would come from the detailed design work that we do from there.
No, I guess the question was, could I, if I had IP on myself, that covered one of your components, would you know about that?
Probably. I mean, it's been out. They've given presentations at Podcar conferences, so anybody doing a similar thing. There are similarities to other systems in some areas, but nothing that would clash with any IP.
So some freedom to operate might be a good idea. Yeah.
And there are alternative suppliers. It's proven technology.
Sure.
Could I go back to the suspended system? I was wondering if you've done any customer behavior research. I'm assuming there's a percentage of people that would never enter a suspended system. What's that percentage like? Is it 0.5%? Is it 30%?
I belong to a Google Transport community, and there are people on there who put all sorts of information, and I've read reports and things, and particularly a lot of work that's already been done by Ultra and some of the other companies. They do publish some of their work. Obviously their system is slightly different, and yes, there is that perception that, oh, you're looking out and there's nothing below you. But I think given the benefits of it, especially for older people and disabled people and that, I think they'd live with that. They'd actually enjoy it, perhaps. A bit of excitement in their lives. Good passenger experience. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Hold some more.